I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on.
I didn't want to live the way they were going to tell me to live. They said, we're not going to send you to school, we're not going to do this for you, we're not going to help you anymore.
Hi, my name is Rad.
Hi, I'm Susan. This is our friend Michael, and he's here to tell us about his road to atheism. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, in the beginning, you were born where and your family was?
Well, actually, I was born and raised in Illinois. My mom's from the Philippines. My dad was the son of Polish immigrants, and he was a physician. My mom was kind of a housewife. And we grew up in a very Catholic family.
Very traditional.
Little cultish.
Cultish, okay. Meaning what, exactly?
Well, he went beyond the norms. He would, my father, actually, he wasn't with my mother that long. He had several wives, but he would like to, it's interesting, when he would go to another country to get a wife, he would have to baptize them.
That's very interesting.
And he wanted them to become Catholics, but he'd never go pick out a woman from the church. Because, you know what it is? He's looking for somebody who, doesn't speak English very well, somebody he can control, and he would use the religion to manipulate and justify any kind of irrational thing he does.
Did you have any ceremonial or any special rituals that you would have to go through at home?
Yes, actually, we would read the Bible every night. Well, every night that he was home, because he was a doctor. And we had to say rosary. We would have prayers over the phone if he couldn't come home.
What kind of a doctor was
he? He was a gynecologist.
Oh, lovely.
Interesting. So he knew his women before they came
He sure did. And it was
very intimately, I bet.
And it was really interesting because he would make us go to Sunday school and talk about all these moralistic things, but then he would do the opposite in the way he lived his life.
Okay, so your background and training was on a religious side. You were Catholic or
Catholic, yes.
And so you went through the Stations of the Cross and everything.
Oh yeah.
So you knew that
novenas,
quite well.
Everything.
And you had to
say you go to a Catholic school or public school?
On and off. It depends on the finances. Because he was one of those people. He was having good times and bad times.
When you went to Catholic school, what was the training that you went through?
I went to Catholic school when I was much younger and public school when I was older. Much of it was through Sunday school or whatever he taught us.
Okay. And the demographics in your neighborhood?
Well, I lived in a town called Decatur, Illinois, which is about 3 hours from Chicago. It was about 30% black, and the rest were pretty much working class or low-income whites.
Of the whites, was it Irish or Italian?
A lot of them didn't even know
German?
what they were.
Really?
They just say they're American.
Okay.
Did they, but they weren't Catholic. They
were Catholics, but...
I mean, were those like evangelicals or...
Yeah, it was mostly a Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal type of a town. The upper middle class were Catholics and like Episcopalians. It was really more of a class thing, who's Catholic.
Okay. Did you have any conflicts of dealing with the other groups in the neighborhood?
Not really, actually.
Family?
It was more racial because I'm half Asian. I'd get made fun of for being half Asian, not because of my religion.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, my town was so racist that in 1999, Jesse Jackson came to my high school and got arrested in front of my high school.
For what?
Because there were some African American students who were expelled, and he came there on their behalf. And it was more or less he did it for himself. It was a publicity stunt. After he got arrested and after the cameras left, he lost interest.
What year was this?
1999.
Okay.
This is only 16 years ago.
He ran for president at
88.
In 88,
So
right.
what? I mean, this is he was arrested. So was he put on trial? Or
No, it was just like he had to pay a fine for trespassing.
That's what usually. Yeah.
He just did it for the cameras.
Okay, so as you were getting older,
Mm-hmm.
did you have any interests in science, math, or anything that you like to do, or did you do a lot of reading of
Actually,
outside material?
I love
other than the Catholic.
I love reading
dogma?
history about other cultures. I didn't really start going that direction until my father wanted to get another wife. And he took me to China, and I
What
went.
age? What age was that?
16.
Okay.
And he was very busy with the woman he picked out online a few weeks earlier. He got that woman from Indonesia, and that only lasted 11 months because she left him to go. She went to a women's shelter to get away from him, where she lived for 6 months.
He was abusive?
Oh, of course. He used to beat her up all the time.
Oh.
And you know what it was is because he's a doctor, and and he had lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a lot of siblings or half siblings?
Yeah, on the record, I have 3 brothers. 2 of them are half brothers, 1 full brother.
Older, younger?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, so you're the...
Any sisters?
No sisters.
Okay. So you said that you went to Asia at that time to meet the other wife.
Yes.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 16, yes. He brought me along because my younger brothers were in foster homes, and he was on trial for child abuse. Mm-hmm. So, but he posted bond, was allowed to leave the country to get another wife. So we were in China, and, he was busy. And I went exploring. I ended up in Buddhist temples. I wasn't supposed to do that. Because that's a sinful place. And, as time went on, I started I came back, I became more curious about other cultures and the rest of the world.
Yes.
And I started learning about different cultures and religions and, but I didn't really call myself an atheist till I was about 18.
Well, you didn't question anything at that time yet.
I was questioning things as early as 13.
As 13?
Because I would read about ancient cultures like the Vikings.
Uh-huh.
But, I started learning about other cultures.
Buddhists, you mentioned.
Buddhism. I even went into some mosques when I was in China. Western China was where my dad's third wife is from. There's about 70 million Muslims living in China. So I was going into mosques, and I was getting curious about that. And
so the exposure was multiple. Right.
And then that was the start of me questioning things about Catholicism. And another thing that happened is because I had a priest who... This kind of started when I was 17. It was right after my father died.
Abusive?
No. The priest actually was real judgmental, and he told me to say all these Hail Marys for something I confessed to. And then about a week later, he gets arrested for child molestation.
Oh, dear.
And I stopped going to that church after that.
So your father passed on, how old were you?
17. And a few months later, I was going to confession like I usually do, and this priest was telling me that I'm living a life of sin. And a week later, he's not there, and it's all over the papers that he had been transferred there from Minnesota. This is Wisconsin, where I moved to Wisconsin to live with my mom after my father, and I was still a minor. And his name was Father Robert. I don't remember his last name. And he was, wanted in another state for child molestation, and he wasn't going to be there anymore.
And this is typical of the Catholic dominance in the church. Is the fact is that rather than getting you out of the church, they bring you to another area and pass you around. Switch and trade and stuff like that. That's most unfortunate.
Yeah, so I stopped going to church after that. I wasn't going as often. I wasn't taking it as seriously. And then, I was just right after I turned 18. I was, going through my dad's list of his black book. I got into his AOL account. And his buddy list, there was a guy on there who was in New York, and he basically we ended up having a 5-hour, over 2 days having 5 hours of phone conversations about various things. And he flew me to New York, and this is 2003. I was 18, and
your father still didn't know about this.
No, my father had been dead for my father had been dead for like 6 or 7 months at this point. And this guy, this is the guy who really this is why I'm even in New York right now. I flew out here. He noticed I'm wearing a scapular, and he told me he came from a Catholic family.
He befriended you.
Yes. Good. And over time, we'd have all these phone calls. He took me around New York City. I kind of figured him out. He's basically a con artist.
Oh, dear.
He still is a con artist. He's still around, but...
what does he do?
He's a con artist. He just basically sleeps with older women, and he lives off of them. He's just and he works out at the gym all day to look good. And What was interesting is I know he told me this, and it was true. He says that just because you're good, good things don't happen to you. Just because you're bad, bad things don't happen to you. Mm-hmm. And I realized, years and years of being friends with this guy, nothing ever happens to this guy. But back then, I watched this guy for a whole week. He's hanging around rich people. He's just spending money he didn't earn.
There's a name for that kind of person.
Yeah, he's a parasite.
Gigolo.
A gigolo.
He's a gigolo.
He's a gigolo, exactly.
No doubt. But I noticed he's not being struck by lightning.
Okay, and this is what you thought, according to the Catholic presence,
I thought
that would happen if you're bad. You're going to be struck.
Right, because I was reinforced through my childhood that God's going to strike you one way or another, and He works in mysterious ways. But and then He started introducing me to other people doing similar stuff to what he's doing, men and women. They're just basically parasites, gigolos,
Yes.
or these are like these professional mistresses and dominatrix type people just around New York here. And he was taking me to the village and I was just really stunned. All these people could do all these sinful things, and they're not being struck with lightning. Mm-hmm. Right. And anyways,
that's one way to learn about how false a religion is.
Well, on the other hand,
because I was afraid to go certain places because of this.
It's that bad.
I realized nobody's
inundated.
There's no supernatural force that's watching me, or I'm not part of anybody's will.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the guilt feeling, by the way, that the Catholics do put on you.
Oh, yeah. Because I used to live with all this guilt. And it was just funny because, I go back to Wisconsin a week later. Mm-hmm. I have a completely different look. He gave me a makeover. I got rid of that Midwest look I had at the time. And then I started having different goals in life, and my family didn't like it. So I get kicked out of the house. Oh. Here's what's happening.
At what age?
18. This is just a matter of 3 or 4 months after I visited New York and met the gigolo. Uh-huh. He likes to call himself Dr. Connor. He tells people he's a physician. He's not. He took some medical terminology classes at a community college many years ago, and that's about the only medical experience. And I heard he still, he sells things to people at gyms or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's the only doctoring he ever did in his life. Mm-hmm.
So you went back to
right Wisconsin, where my mom and stepdad were at, and they a few months later I get kicked out of the house. I'm living out of my car.
And the reasons why?
Well, because I didn't want to live the way they were going to tell me to live. Oh. They said, we're not going to send you to school. We're not going to do this for you. We're not going to help you anymore. You're on your own. So be it. So I call up Gigolo again, and I say, what do I do? I'm living out of my car, and I'm working at a gas station for $6 an hour. He says, just show up at a temp agency and tell them you work at a doctor's office. So I did. And the next thing you know, my income tripled in a year. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, I'm living in New York City, and I'm working at a financial place, and I'm living on Roosevelt Island with the Gigolo. Oh. And my religion just went out the door. We're going out and we're basically going on road trips. We're flying all over the world. He was getting women to help support him. I mean, I could have gotten into that lifestyle, but I don't like being told what to do. I've been told what to do my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't going to let anybody else tell me what to do, so I didn't really get into the gigoloing.
Right. So you had a little taste of freedom, and in addition to that, you also
noticed that God wasn't striking him dead and causing plane crashes.
Exactly.
In fact, I came to realize that the Catholic Church is a corporation.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Because I started after a couple of years of working on Wall Street and working for corporations, I saw how they operate. Mm-hmm. They're not just a corporation. I saw the criminal stuff they were doing. They're basically white collar criminals.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain a little more detail on that?
Well, like on Wall Street, they do a lot of inside. I mean, I was a low-end employee because I have no formal education. Mm-hmm. I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to college.
But you had good common sense.
Yes. And I learned from the Gigolo you don't need those things to work on Wall Street. And I used to think to myself, I used to think I'd never, because I thought that's all I could do is be a janitor. He says, no, I never went to school, and look at me. You want to live like this? And I said, really? And he says, yeah, praying isn't going to get you there. Mm-hmm. You're just, what it is? It's just most people, it's just your appearance and your confidence.
Okay. Now, the corporation attitude of the Catholic Church, what did you notice about them? Similarities?
Well, actually, I just noticed it's basically the churches are the individual churches are like little franchises, mm-hmm. and they have memberships. I mean, just like operating gyms. It's like taking a bunch of Bally's. Mm-hmm.
Spread around.
Right. And each one's its own little franchise, or opening a Subway restaurant. Another good example. Oh, interesting. They're all over. They're all over the country. Mm-hmm. They're all over the world.
Right, they are.
And they try to get people to come in. They want people to have more children so they can keep the members. Yeah. And the other thing is it's not really. Another thing people don't realize, it's not the donations that really give them the money. It's the hospitals.
Mm-hmm. That's scary. As a woman, that is very scary because then they make the rules regarding what happens to our bodies.
That's what I thought it was the really scary part about it.
So you became a realist in the jungle.
Yes.
right?
Yes. Here I am, just this guy who only lived in small towns, no education. Now I'm living in New York City.
As you see things from a different perspective, you notice what's in the book, this holy book, supposedly.
Yes.
And from what you saw as immoral that church does, and you're kind of coming to a conclusion in that area?
Oh, I came to the conclusion years ago.
Okay.
It's basically man-made. It's
It's
a cult.
That's it.
It's just like it's just like what companies do. They tell you need this product, you need this service. You can't.
With that in mind, as Susan says, you see how the people are held to that state without having that open mind, without thinking in a logical sense. Would you say the foundation is fear?
Yes, that's exactly. And you need the product is salvation.
Because you want to go that way, and you don't want to go that way.
They're creating a market for something that doesn't exist,
and they reinforce this.
It's just like with Wall Street, where they have these securities, and you're investing in these securities for things that you don't really own, and they don't know who really owns them, and they don't
derivatives.
Yes, and that's what the Catholic Church is. This was the comparison to it, because my Wall Street job dried up in 2007, so I took off for China for a little over a year.
Where did you go?
I lived in Shanghai, and then I traveled around the whole continent.
Did you like Shanghai?
Loved it. About a year over there, and then I actually became friends with the Filipino migrant workers that were working there illegally as maids and prostitutes and whatever it is that they were doing, bar workers.
To survive.
Yeah, and then
how did the government treat the people? These foreigners.
Here's how it is in Asia. Most third world countries, if you pay a bribe, you could do whatever you want. And think about it. If you're you're a police officer and you make $100 a week, and somebody gives you $200 to look the other way, of course, what are you going to do? And it's even true here. If they give you enough money, if they give a cop enough money, and he's that desperate to take care of his family, he'll do what he needs to do.
I see.
But anyways, money talks,
and works.
That's the one thing I've learned everywhere I go. Well, here's the thing. What I started really wanting to get into activism for atheism was because I realized I'm half Filipino, and I'm surrounded by all these illegal Filipinos living in China. And then I went to some surrounding countries, same thing. So I had to leave China to renew my visa, and Philippines happened to be the cheapest option. So I go down there, and I get there, because I was wondering, why do these people come all this way to live 10 or 15 people to a room to clean houses for a couple $100 a month?
Yeah.
And I saw why. I saw some of the worst poverty I've ever seen. And the one thing I noticed consistently with most of the people there, they were very religious.
Yes.
And they
That's
thought
what
that
usually happens.
Yes.
And
That's what happens.
This is why I was going around explaining to them how silly this is. You're thinking God is telling you, God has a reason for this. Philippines is a Catholic country. They don't allow divorce. They don't allow birth control. They don't allow abortions.
And therefore the families develop in that same mode, and they have their population necessary to follow on doing the things for the church.
So you have all these street children now, because people can't stop having children. You have all these women who don't have any other way to support these children other than prostituting. And then they don't require men to pay child support there. So now you have all these men making all these women pregnant. I started seeing something wrong with this country, the Philippines, and I wanted to get into some kind of activism.
I was just going to say something political involved,
right?
If you could, or be with an organization that would protest that type of thing.
Right. Well,
so do you think atheism is growing in the Philippines?
I believe more and more people are coming out, but it's really the educated class and the ones that have been abroad that are really
the most
influencing.
Religious are the poor.
Yes, and I know that's so
the way
sad.
It usually is all around.
It's the opiate of the masses.
Because well, actually, when I was in China, I wasn't really doing very well over there. I found out why people want to come to America, but the adventure was getting over. I came back here and to a recession, but I was lucky to get work in television for about 3 years. I did see celebrities, but I didn't really meet them. Worked at NBC for 2 years over at Rockefeller. Then I worked at A&E Television for about a year. But,
you were an intern?
Yeah, no, I got paid. I was not an intern. I was a temp.
Okay, all right.
I was kind of like an analyst because I did like a little bit of analyzing. I BS'd my way into a Wall Street job at Thomson Financial, which is now Thomson Reuters.
Thanks to the gigolo.
Yes.
Okay.
He told me how to pass an interview, and they won't check your background if you pass the first interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
how was that?
It was actually mind numbing. I just did spreadsheets all day and sent letters to people and made phone calls about stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I'd get coffee for people. It wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's a lot less. It's not as hard as working at a gas station for $6 an hour. Now I'm making $22 an hour.
That's right.
Resting up nice, being in air conditioning, not having to clean up anything.
Well, let me ask you now. When you were in New York, when did you get involved with the atheist organizations, and what organizations did you get involved with?
Actually, 2010. I like to walk around the city. Mm-hmm. I see I was by Columbus Circle. It was the tent.
Aha.
Mm-hmm.
And it was John Wagner, and there was this Indian girl who just recently came out of NYC Atheists. She was a high school student. I don't know what happened to her, but John Wagner said that they're having a brunch tomorrow, and the guy who does the Genome Project was going to be there, and that was my first NYCA meeting. And then after that, I liked that. I went to the Living Without Religion. Mm-hmm. Linda Blakey ran that one for a while. Mm-hmm.
Right.
What's interesting, though, is New York City Atheists official stand about the mosque that was going to be a few blocks from the World Trade Centers. We supported it because, just like we have the right to be atheists, they have the right to be Muslims.
That's right.
And we're a very tolerant organization.
And that's very important. That's what this country is all about, even though you may get some religions that want to be just one way and block everybody else from thinking that way. And that is true with Islamic, or it could be true with other organizations as well. Has science helped in any way whatsoever?
Actually, you know what? It actually has, because when you think about the size of outer space, you're an astronomer, right? Here's the question I had when I was about 13 or 14. I asked my priest, because there was something on TV about life on other planets.
Okay.
I asked my priest if if the world is like Star Trek, and there's humanoid-looking people in all parts of the galaxy, do those people have to believe in Jesus?
Of course they do. There was somebody who said that we can't make friends with aliens because they're all going to hell because they don't know Jesus.
She's saying that tongue-in-cheek because that
I
happens
know.
to be one of the preachers that did mention something
And
like
the priest didn't really answer my question. He kind of started just changing the subject. He just kind of drifted off. He says, well, we don't know what God has in store for us. I said, but you didn't answer.
It works in mysterious ways, right?
He says, I'm sure that Jesus has reached them at some point. Mm-hmm. So Jesus goes to other planets and talks to the Klingons and the Romulans and the Vulcans and the Ewoks.
But if he goes to other planets, why didn't he show up in China and India and the Americas and Australia and Africa thousands of years ago and explain his rules? The whole world would be eating kosher, and that would have been taken a really superhero type of super being, and I probably wouldn't be an atheist if he had done that. But all he did was hover above this tiny little bunch of tribes in the Middle East, and why would he go to Vulcan and Klingon and Romulus and
I think
all those other
places there.
the first time I think I really questioned Jesus it's very similar to what the analogy you just made was my father. I was about maybe 6 or 7 years old. My father told me Santa Claus isn't real. I said, well, how old do I have to be when Jesus isn't real? And he got really angry. I
I
said,
did see that, yeah.
because that was a real serious question because the tooth fairy's not real, Santa's
That's
not real.
a good one to remember.
I used to ask him, how does Santa get to all those little children around the world, and how does he know which ones are good and bad?
And especially those apartments that don't have a chimney or a fireplace, right?
Right, exactly, because he was in medical school at the time. I said, we don't have a chimney. What are we going to do? Actually, the Catholic Church is very good at this. Compared to the other Christian groups, they actually have PhDs. They require their priests to have a master's degree before they go to seminary.
Pope Francis does too.
Yeah.
So when they always say that, he can't talk about climate change because he doesn't know it, he's not a scientist, and we who know better all say, well, he has a degree.
Leave it to the scientists.
Yeah, he does have a master's degree in chemistry or something, I believe. And so, the whole idea that the Catholic Church is as ignorant as some of the other churches is not true.
They're not. No, they're professional. I was saying that's what compared to some of these born again churches or these Pentecostal where they got
they stick to the
6,000-year-old.
Yes.
Right, literally And the thing is this: the Catholic Church, as you can see, what's happening with the Pope now, is they're changing their views to anticipate with the future, so they have a stake in the future. Mm-hmm. So they're saying, yes, now we do believe in evolution, but don't forget it was God-inspired.
Right.
You see, the science and the information and the evidence is closing in on them, so this is their clear path that they can continue.
It's God of the gap.
And then they become lenient as time goes. As they lose members over certain issues, they start becoming more lenient.
Yeah.
As opposed to other
Right.
churches. Yes.
Yeah, the other ones are really, it's just like a one-man show, like the smaller Christian religions. It's some guy who got a certificate out of the back of a book or a correspondence, and then, I'm ordained now. And then he basically, he's serving like Ritz crackers and Hawaiian punch for communion. And
Well, this is very good. It's interesting, and you have a colorful past
Yeah.
that I think is a contributor to your logic and to the way you think now because you've had the exposure.
Well, one of our members, too, one of our female members,
Yes.
runs an atheist organization in the Philippines.
Yes,
He's
she ran.
associated with it.
Well, actually, I'm associated with the organization she used to run. It's called HAPPY. It's a humanist alliance of the Philippines, Philippine Islands, I guess. And but I joined her organization called PATAS, Philippine Atheist and Agnostic Society, and I actually was at some atheist meetings in the Philippines.
So there is a little growing there.
Actually, yes, there's thousands of members.
But yes, you said they were more of the
higher
upper.
class.
Right,
Yeah.
right. A majority of them were like either they were in the LGBT or they went to
That
the
had
higher
education.
higher education, or they lived overseas for a certain number of years.
So the influence is there. From
Right.
It'll seep down.
Right, but like the
Hopefully.
people in the slums, those are the ones that don't speak English very well, or the ones that do lower end.
They
type
need to
work.
cling to
Right.
some kind of hope, even if it's a false hope.
which is true here
In
too.
the Philippines,
True,
what is
definitely.
the majority? Is it a Christian or Muslim?
It's very Christian. Muslims are like less than 10% of the population.
Okay.
And they're mostly in Mindanao, which is
where the Muslims.
yes, Malaysia, Indonesia, no, it's predominant. If you know what it was, because the Spanish came there, but they would have been mostly. They would have probably been like another Malaysia, or they would have been like another South Pacific. You understand, Philippines is like the size of Texas, but it's scattered across 7,000 islands.
Yes.
So there's like different languages, different cultures, different religions, like Pacific religions, and then there was the Islam influence. There were even some
Islamic is what I really
Yeah.
should have said instead of Muslim. It's
right, and then
Islamic.
even there was even some Buddhism because the Chinese and the Japanese came through there a
Influence
lot.
there,
Yes, and then the Spanish and the Portuguese and the British came through there, but the Spanish wanted the islands for
Colonialism leaves its
Yes.
mark, its ugly mark, unfortunately.
and really that's what it is now. It's basically leftovers of the Spanish Empire and some American military bases that used to be there, and that's what formed the current culture.
I'm going to ask for you to give word to our listeners out there,
Sure.
to those people that are sort of fence straddlers that are thinking one way or the other.
Actually, you're going to love this. Some people know me as a Catholic. Some people know me as a born again. And some people know me as atheist. Some people don't know anything about me at all, other than they work with me. It depends on what you have to lose. Do what you think is best for you. You can believe what you want.
Friends, family, you
Yeah,
lose.
you can continue to pretend. You don't have to tell them anything. If you're not ready to. And then you don't have to argue with anybody.
No.
You don't have to do anything about it.
Okay.
You can continue to live the way you are.
I want to thank you very
Sure.
much for what you did.